Carol, you're next on my list.
Okay, hi, I'm Carol, KP4MD. I'm the Vice President and Webmaster of River City ARCS, also your ARL Sacramento Valley Section Manager.
Then I go to Gert.
Yeah, and put a face on it. Yeah, Kilo 6, Zulu Golf Alpha, and Secretary of the club.
Then I go to Mr. Louderville.
This is Bob, Kilo Oscar 6, Charlie uniform from Vacaville.
Thank you, Bob. Then I've got Mr. Martin.
Well, this is
Dave. I'm Dave, WB6LK. You got two Mr. Martins here, though. You got
Which one's more handsome?
It all depends whether you do or don't like beards, right?
you want to start a fight there, don't you?
My job.
It's how your mama told you apart.
You know, my mother once said to me, she said, son, you're the one person I can take anywhere and be ashamed of.
All right, I am Ken, KE6RMN, newsletter editor.
Great. Then the next one I've got is KD6GBY. Say something, Art. Oh, space bar.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Art KD6GBY. Good to see you guys. And ladies too.
Next on my list is John Taylor. Space bar. Space bar, then talk. Sign language works almost. I'm going to pass. Okay, we're going to go to Craig, KG6 or K6JGV. Space bar.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work.
It does work.
Okay, great. I'm Craig from Florida.
Thanks, Greg. And then we've got Tom and Sylvia out chasing comets. I'm sorry, eclipses.
There's a comet too.
Oh, cool. How are things?
Good. They're either hot, too
Is
hot.
it snowing in Texas?
They're too cold.
It's a cold night
It's
today.
a cold night,
Cold night.
which is better than the hot night.
So I'm Tom, Whiskey 6, beautiful Sacramento in Waco.
Oh, that's good.
And
Kilo Sierra 6 Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Very well done.
we practiced. All right. Thank you.
You know, we were in Minneapolis last week. We got in on Tuesday. It's their first snowstorm of the year. And Deb absolutely panics the instant she sees snow. So tell me how my week went. Okay, who else we got in? Jennifer.
Yep.
Space bar.
Simon.
Space bar. There you go.
Yeah, spacebar doesn't work for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Kilo India 1, Tango Tango Yankee. Last week, Juliet Kilo 1, X-ray, Quebec Oscar.
Ooh. Call change?
For Japan, they give you a temporary license and a call
Are
sign.
you in Japan currently?
No, got back Sunday.
And how was it?
Back.
It's lovely. I'm ready to sleep.
How was the sushi?
You know, I like our sushi better, but the ramen and the udon and a bunch of other food that we ate was stunningly wonderful.
That's great. That must have been
Yeah.
quite an
The
adventure.
food was really good. I can't complain about any of it.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time. We'll go to Carl, N6CKV, spacebar.
Good evening, everyone. N6CKV. Doing all right. It's nice out. It's going to rain later on.
That's better than the snoo.
That's for sure.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I said that's for sure. Don't like the snow.
We've got Ron, W0EER.
Yeah, this is Ron. I'm a friend of Rick Seeley's and formerly K6EER. And I'm looking forward to your presentation tonight. I'm in Pueblo, Colorado.
Well, congratulations. Glad you could join us.
Very, very interesting topic.
Kishore.
Hey, good evening. This is Kishore, Kilo Romeo 6, Romeo Alpha Oscar, Eldorado Hills. Excited to be here. Can't wait.
Well, we're pleased to have you as well. We're 23 attendees now. N6HA Bill.
Hi, everyone. It's Bill, November 6 Hotel Alpha.
Well, welcome. How are things?
Good, good. Yeah, things are good. I got this. I have this now, all built that you gave me, Phil. Oh,
For
there you
those
go.
of you who don't know, that's one of my printed circuit boards, and I will not admit to it.
You notice I have red toroids in it though, and I found that might be a little better. So we'll see, and I have the box for it. So that's the next step, but I need to find time.
Okay. Do I have anybody I've not missed here, or I have missed here? We got James, KK6FON. Spacebar, James.
Say again.
How you doing?
Can't complain.
Good.
You look well.
Well, I'm still breathing, and that's probably a debatable topic. And then we got Kayla.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here.
We're at 26 attendees. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And we've got Hank. Spacebar, Hank. Maybe he's on the cell phone. How about Neil, KL7HQR? Maybe he's cell phone too. We did Bill. Have we done Daryl, KM6KFW?
Not yet, but this is Daryl, KM6KFW from Woodland. And I invited some other people. I don't know that they're here yet, but hopefully you get a couple here from Woodland.
Well, at this point, I got a head count at 25. And we've got Marie in there. Are you there, Marie? I suspect she is. So I think that's everybody I've got at this point.
Let me check in, Phil. It's Wilson,
Well,
November
I tried
6th.
you before, but you didn't talk back.
I'm sorry. Well, let me go ahead because before the meeting I was stepped away, but I was, so Wilson here, November 6th, Echo Mike Foxtrot, and I am your treasurer for the River City Arcs as well as the membership chair. Thank you, Phil.
And the presenter for the evening.
And the HamClock presenter for the evening. Yes, I am.
We're looking forward to it. All right. I think that's everybody that I'm currently aware of. And at this point, since you're online, Wilson, how about a treasurer's report?
Yeah, let me get that started, okay? 1 second while I figure out how to share my screen, which seems like it's something new every time I try to do it.
It's a test.
Yeah. I had the document up and here it is. So bear with me. Let me see. So I will share the document. It's coming right along. Hang in there with me. I think this is it. Okay. Would somebody tell me when they can see it.
It says Wilson started screen sharing.
Hasn't, yeah, it hasn't popped up yet though.
Okay, all right. Let me try it again. It's working on a very limited screen. And it shows that, so let me resume the share. Okay, that must be working.
There you go.
Thank you, thank you. That's, they say fake it until you make it. I think I just made it.
Good job.
All right, so again, I'm your treasurer, and I'm going to provide a treasury report this evening. And this is the River City Amateur Radio Communication Society treasurer's report for it was prepared on March 26, 2024. And to give a membership status update, I want to welcome 3 new and returning members. One is Brad Johnson, Kilo Oscar 6, Kilo Lima. Al Canton, Kilo 6 Alpha Alpha India. Al has been around a long time, but he's making his way back on the membership roll. And Walt Foss, Kilo 6 Hotel Tango Delta. So welcome our 3 new club members or returning, and I really appreciate you. And also just want to express general appreciation for the repeater donations that keep rolling in that we have as the evergreen donors. So the Ham Club Online club self-check member statistics show that we have 157 members. Apparently there's 16 family memberships, 130 general members, and 11 life members. Now, those statistics are kind of they don't necessarily map directly to how we traditionally kept statistics, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what's happening with our membership. It's growing slowly, and it is growing. Let's see. Let me do a single page. And next up is at the end of February 2024, our Safe Credit Union balance was $9,350.66. Our income throughout the reporting period, which ended at March 26, we had $290 income on membership dues, $48.68 on repeater donations, and we had $40 of income on club projects from whatever, and then other income $105 for a total of $473.63. The general fund expenditures were $14.39 for PayPal charges, and we had subscription fees, including the Google Workspace and our donation to the Ham Club Online. It's $196.88 for the total expense is $211.27. Our ending balance with the Safe Credit Union was $9,603.87, and the repeater fund grew a little bit over the month to $29.64, and the general fund grew just a little bit to $67.34. So,
Wilson, I have to note that I've seen several Ham Club Online payments come through. As one each comes through, I get a report on it. It's encouraging to see it's beginning to look the way you would expect it to look.
Thank you for that, Phil. And I want to apologize to any members or anyone that has made a payment or a donation or has joined that I have not acknowledged in the last week. So I will get to that probably tomorrow and the next day and make some updates. I don't think we had any new members in the last few days, but I do appreciate, like Phil said, that folks are starting to honor and recognize and use Ham Club Online. It's working. So that's all I've got for a treasury report. I've got some standing action items that I'm going to be taking care of as I get some more time freed up. Any questions or comments?
You're doing a great job. The numbers look good. I think our membership appreciates your efforts. It's a difficult job. You know, you not only handle our finances, but keeping track of the membership. And the idea behind this Ham Club Online is to make that a much easier task. It's just that the implementation sometimes is a little lagging. And we need the help of the membership to kind of get this thing to the finish line. Again,
Yep. Well,
thank you. Great job. And did you have anything else before we move on to?
no, thank you. You're welcome. All good. I'll stop sharing
The
this.
website activity?
Yes. Let's share this. Let me get, here we go. Gee, it's fun to be doing these back on Zoom. Haven't done this in a while. Okay. This is the website report. Whoop, there we go. Now we go. This is for web activity for the month of March, actually. And as a reminder, our website is n6na.org. And we try to keep this updated with all the latest events going on in River City Arts, as well as in the general area here of amateur radio, to keep everyone updated. So do check that every once in a while. And reminder, our nets. Tomorrow will be our Wednesday nets, starting with the YL net that Jen started. That's going very well at 5:30 p.m. and it's on the 145.25 megahertz repeater. And that also is carried on the Echolink conference server from the Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association. So we get check-ins from all over the world there, in addition to having a check-in from Japan, which was really, really exciting last time. At 8 p.m. we have our regular 2-meter net for the general membership. That's also, of course, you can get in there on Echolink as well in All-Star. Our 10-meter net is at 8:30 p.m., 28.420 megahertz upper sideband. And then 9 p.m. we have our slow scan TV net, which is on 441.30 repeater, and it's also carried on our YouTube channel. Just a reminder that our backup repeater we'd actually had to activate it once when the main repeater went down. Everyone should.
By the way, I guess that worked out pretty well, huh?
It worked. It worked for a whole day until Chris could get out and fix the problem that was going on at the over at the hub in West Sacramento. So everyone should program a memory channel in their radios it's the same frequency pair, but with a different PL tone, 123.0. That's the PL for that. So when we announce that we're going to the backup repeater, you'd be able to talk to us. Otherwise, you won't be able to get through. And we're planning to do a practice net using this here coming up soon. So we'll give everyone advance notice when we're going to do that. And a reminder about our roundtable net also is going strong Saturdays at 3 p.m. on 7181 kilohertz lower sideband. The website activity for March, we had a total of 1,218 page views, and the peak web page views actually were 124, and that was just on February 28th, which was the day before March started actually. And the most visited web pages during March were the home page, then followed by the repeater page, the membership application page, our 10-meter page, and then our nets page as well.
I like the membership application page being a big one.
Yeah, that's people go there. What we're doing is we're directing our new applicants to go there, and then of course some people who are renewing, they go there to get instructions on where they need to go to renew. It very clearly says that we're asking people to renew to go to the Ham Club Online website. So it's good that people are checking that out. Okay, 50% of the hits to our website are led there by search engines like Bing and Google. And we have 38% are direct hits to our n6na.org website. 7.6% are referred from other websites. 3.6% are referred from videos, and 0.5% referred by social media. Most of the hits, of course, are from the United States, followed by Canada, Austria, and a few other countries there, as you can see. Social media, we now have 479 subscribers to our YouTube channel. We had 919 views of videos, and that number went down 1,750 since last month. And of course, the big thing the month prior to that was the Girl Scout talking to the International Space Station. That's why we had
that's still a lot of video views.
It is. So the main during this past month, though, most of the videos watched were the Rig Expert Talk that was given by Mike Goretzky back in 2018. Then your talk about HF antennas is up there, and the Girl Scouts was number 3 for last month, and then a couple of other videos. People like to see the videos that we have posted up there. Facebook page, we have beat 1,000. We're up to 1,021 followers on our Facebook page. And the Facebook discussion group has 123 members. Twitter page has 164 followers. And Discord chat has 39 members. I do have some other information that I wanted to share, if that's okay. I made arrangements here, some important announcements. Let's see if I can, let me stop the share a moment. Okay, and I'll go to this other. Here we go. Thank you very much for your patience. And
doing a fine job.
Well, thank you. Okay, I want to just say thanks again to Ken for doing the newsletter. It's been uninterrupted in print since 2011. Of course, we have back issues going back to 2002 on the website. So anybody interested in writing something for the newsletter, send it to Ken Martin, K6RMN. A few very important events coming up in April, and I'm sure this will probably overlap some of the things you're going to say there, Phil. But the session 3 for the Are You Ready for HF is going to be April 9th at 6 p.m. And that's talking about HF operating procedures, DXing and contesting. April 12th to 14th, the International DX Convention is going to meet in Visalia. And that's a very fine annual convention that's attended by hams from all over the world, actually. I plan to go there. April 14th, there's the electronics flea market down in Silicon Valley. On the 15th is the DIY Radio Homemade Radio Workshop, and that's led by Bob Mix, KF6ABC, and that's going very well. April 20th, of course, is our club breakfast at Brookfields on Madison Avenue. April 27th, the Valley of the Moon Amateur Radio Club has a hamfest in Sonoma. And on April 26th to 28th, there's a brand new convention. It's the Big Bear Mini Hamcation down Big Bear Lake. That's in Southern California. So we have a lot of ham radio stuff going on in April. And just a few contests going on this month also. April 6th to 7th, the Missouri and Mississippi QSO parties. April 8th, Solar Eclipse QSO party. And I guess we won't have another solar eclipse for 20 years. So look into participating in that if you're interested. April 13th and 14th, the Georgia, North Dakota, and New Mexico QSO parties. April 20th and 21st, they have the Michigan and Nebraska QSO parties. April 21st is the ARRL Rookie Roundup, and 27 and 28 is a Florida QSO party. And again, the HF series is going strong, very, very well attended. The next one, of course, is April 9th, and that's going to be meeting at the Raley's Meeting Room San Juan Avenue. And then May 18th, we're planning to do our hands-on HF operating session, and that's going to be at the Farm and Tractor Days at Dry Creek Ranch in Rio Linda. And we have to, for those that are participating in this, we'll find out what is the best time to do that. But that'll be open, because that'll be open to the general public at our booth that we'll be having over there at the Dry Creek Ranch in Rio Linda. The Builders Group also is going well. They've already built their LED flasher, twin T oscillator, and they're working on a Pixie transceiver. And they have the next meeting on April 15th in the Bel Air Meeting Room on Arden Way. This again is a Farm and Tractor Days announcement. Field Day is coming up June 22nd to 23rd. And we've already updated the website page. There's a Field Day website page with a place where you can sign up and commit to coming if you'd like to join us. And if you want to bring some equipment, you can sign up there too as well. And I'm sure that Phil is going to talk about who we need. We already have a person who's volunteered to be a greeter. We need somebody to help with organizing who's going to be on what bands. So Phil, I'm sure you want to talk about that in a moment. And that's about it. Thank you for letting me share. And going back to Phil.
Carol, what a wonderful presentation as usual. First of all, I have been doing my president's column for Mr. Mark.
Phil froze.
But I missed him in the month of April. My wife and I took a trip to Minneapolis to visit our granddaughter, her 11th birthday. And frankly, I forgot all about our newsletter. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, I offer my apologies. I'll try not to miss that obligation again. Along with that, right down the lines of coming events, which is exactly what Carol has just covered, the April 9th session of our HF operations, HF program, is focused on operating on HF, including the DX contesting and DXing, in addition to normal operating procedures. Neil and Bob are the co-presenters for that session, if I've got that correct. And Carol also correctly pointed out that in May, the fourth and final session of this HF program is an actual hands-on arrangement where you guys can see how to set up a station, put it on the air, work a few stations, and that's going to be held in concert with our annual participation at the Dry Creek Ranch for what they call their Farm and Tractor Days. Any of you wishing to operate a tractor, please put in good news for me, a good word for me, because I've told Deb I want an excavator. I think a real man should have an excavator, and she keeps telling me we don't have room for it. Now, she may be right about that, but I really do want to have an excavator.
You can get one for about $30 an hour.
No.
You can get the small Kubotas, and there's a couple of other ones that fit through a normal fence.
No, we don't want that. We want that real man stuff.
You don't think the little ones are real man stuff?
No.
Oh, I beg to disagree.
Yes, I beg to differ. Yeah, they all take skill, Phil.
Oh, it's
Well, I don't
skill.
have
You
any of
need
that.
skill. Yeah.
If you don't have room to for it, as soon as you dig a hole deep enough, you're gonna have room for it.
Go out to Bob. Bob's got room. Go play at Bob's.
I'm already in trouble. Let's move on.
When you can store it at my place, I'll use it.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you got in your background there?
We just need a excavator co-op.
Don't you think that'd be a lot of fun? I mean, you can move great big stuff and tear stuff down.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed.
Let's move on to field day, because this is going to get me in nothing but trouble. Carol has graciously set up her sign-up sheet, but I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of field day. Field day is our annual opportunity to demonstrate that we actually do some good. And it involves us putting forth a substantial amount of effort and conducting a contest to whatever level we wish to push the contest. And in years past, we've had really great success with it, but it involves effort. And so at this point, we do have someone who's volunteered to be a greeter at Field Day. And the purpose of the greeter is as someone comes in, we hold their hands and we introduce them to our hobby. And that is an essential function of a Field Day event. And you know, we're a very nice sized club with some very skilled and talented, friendly folks. And we need to make sure that that message gets out to the general public. So the greeter function is going to be hosted by Neil, KL7HQR, and I'm convinced that he's going to do an excellent job with it. And then the gracious Sylvia, KS6WTF, has volunteered to feed all of us, which again is a selfless consideration and something that is well received. And her husband, Tom, has volunteered to put together the network so we can keep our logging handle together. So at this point, we've got need for I believe it's even an issue. We need to generate a basic worksheet on which we list the bands that are operated and time slots. So say, for example, you show up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and would like to get an hour operating time on 20 meters, you just sign up for that slot and then you're afforded an opportunity to operate in that slot. And the only reason we do this is to ensure that everybody has an opportunity and that there's no conflict. It's just an organizational thing that takes about 30 seconds to implement. Again, I'm kind of perplexed why that's such a difficult thing for someone to volunteer to deal with. The other thing, and this seems to be an ongoing event year after year, no one seems to be interested in being the captain of Field Day. And you know, if you've got a greeter and a band coordinator and somebody taking care of food, about the only role of the captain is to kind of pat people on the back. And, you know, there's some antenna erection that takes place, but we typically have so many people willing to put up antennas, that's not even a big deal. So we could use a captain, but I think we could probably get by without a captain. We can get the other things done. I'll do a layout plan for where we want to place our antennas for the various bands. And that would make some sense. So along with that, there's a couple other things we're going to do. We're going to print up some special badges for our Field Day people. We're going to have a badge for the greeter. We're going to have a badge for the band coordinator. We're going to have a badge for the food goddess. Do you like that, Sylvia? She must be there somewhere. We're going to have
She left.
I'm sorry?
She laughed at your comment.
She is such a sweetheart. I really appreciate her volunteering. And then for a captain, if one steps forward. And I think the other thing we might consider doing this year, and I talked about it at last month's board meeting, I wasn't here for this one. I think it'd be nice to have our members with vests, you know, the orange Caltrans style vests with our club affiliation on the back and their call signs. It'd make us look a little more professional, and we certainly have the funds to budget for that. So we'll see if we can knock that out in our next board meeting. And then Carol's already done this. She's currently polling the members for what equipment they'd like to bring. And typically we set up about 3 HF stations, as I recall, in typical years. And about the only thing that becomes a bit of an issue is solar panels and batteries. And in the last QST I read, there was quite a discussion about generators for field day, and I don't quite know how that fits within the rule, but it seems to be a fairly popular thing. Our role in field day typically has not been necessarily the scoring points, it's the operation and the fellowship. So I think if we were to operate off a generator instead of solar panel, no matter how many points are in there, I don't think it'd be any kind of an issue for the success of our overall program. So that's what we've got coming. Let me move on to some other topics. We're all aware of our door prize program. That's been running pretty well. I have door prizes for tonight, but we don't have a meeting in person tonight. And Gert didn't sell any tickets for tonight. Did you, Gert? Say no. Spacebar, Gert. It's all right.
Couldn't find the door, couldn't give you a prize for it.
There you go. Well done. So in any event, just so everybody's aware of it, we have a choice of 4 prizes typically. One's the Nano VNA, which is one of my favorite little gadgets, and probably my second most favorite little gadget's the tiny spectrum analyzer. We also have a 50-foot length of RG8X and a Bofang, not a Bofang radio, but a ICOM 2-meter HT. And last month, Jason brought, or no, so shit. What am I trying? Sylvia brought in a solar charge controller along with a temperature sensor, a pretty expensive package that Jason won. So that's worked out well. Another topic that I wanted to cover, and we've already talked about it briefly, we made an investment in a backup repeater system up in Zamora, and lo and behold, before we even had a chance to practice with that repeater, we pressed it into service when our main VHF repeater went down. So I think we made a wise investment. You'll note tonight that we are having a Zoom meeting because we had used up our allocation of 6 in a row Sacramento area library facilities. So I've already petitioned to do our May meeting at the Carmichael Library, and in a few days I should get response. But typically we can run those 6 months, and then we have to be off for a month to be in compliance with their rules. I have looked at some other sites, and most of these sites are somewhere in the $100 range, if not a little more. I had one that actually came in at $290 a night for a meeting. I'm highly reluctant to jump into that. And the reason that I'm reluctant to do that is if we were to go down that path, it cost each member as much as $10 a year increase in dues just so that we had this facility. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with that Carmichael Library facility other than we miss out on basically one meeting site a year. So we're probably going to continue what we're doing for a considerable period until something better comes along. So with that, I would like to switch these presentations over to our.
May I make a suggestion, Phil?
What's that, Art?
Why don't we have a contest to see if somebody can find us a suitable space in the Carmichael area? I don't know, we could give them a Nano VNA or a really nice handheld, kind of like a bounty, so to speak.
Contest is on. There's a contest. We'll award a prize for the individual who finds us a suitable meeting place And we'll pat Art on the back for a marvelous idea. What do you think?
Yeah, but you should post it on our website. Find
We
something
have a
really
website
cool.
poster.
Well, I don't know. Get
Carol, can we do that? I know she's in there. somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
But I don't
Contest
think we
is
should
on.
restrict it to Carmichael only, okay?
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, if we stick within 3 or 4 or 5 miles of where we've been in the past, it works. So let's run with it. So with that, Wilson, are you ready?
I'm ready. Ready like Freddy.
This is the HamClock project. And I know several of our members have jumped on that. And I know somewhere in our ranks, we got a 3D printer guy that's been making cases for these things. So with that, Wilson, it's your show.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil. Let me get this screen sharing function going again, and I'll be ready to roll. Let's see here. I will share this presentation. And if I could see that it's sharing now. And could I get some feedback from you if you see a problem with the presentation or if it's just not showing? All right, very good. So I want to express appreciation to you, Phil, for putting me on the air to give this presentation, and also to Carol, because Carol kind of chartered this for me. She laid this out as a suggestion that I give a presentation on HamClock, and she had mentored me a little bit around the HamClock. So I just want to express appreciation to all the support that I got for coming here today to provide this overview. So I'm going to give a HamClock overview, and it's a particularly useful to the radio amateur. So that's a quote that I plagiarized from Carol. So let's see if I can get to the next slide. So what is a HamClock? Well, what's a HamClock? Well, here's one. I'm going to go into that in just a second. And also I want to invite any comments or questions, since there's a lot that you can cover with a HamClock. There really is. There's a lot more than I'm going to cover. But if there's a topic of interest, and if I can't, answer the question, I'm sure somebody in this room might have a perspective or some insight, or I could take an action item to get back to you. So this is a photograph of a HamClock that I built over the last holiday season. So it all started around Halloween of 2023, and I was able to really sort of lean into it around Thanksgiving. So I would call this my Thanksgiving holiday clock, because it's what I did in my spare time when I was off for work that week. So that's a picture of a HamClock. So what is HamClock, right? So there's a guy named Elwood Downey, Whiskey Bravo Zero Oscar Echo Whiskey. He introduced a HamClock in his October 2017 QST article, and he continues to maintain and expand it. He's actually the author of the article and the author of the software program, because it is a software program. And he has a website. It's clearskyinstitute.com. And this is not the only thing he has going on. He's a pretty interesting gentleman. As a matter of fact, I had an email exchange with him this morning, starting last night, because my was working on this presentation and my HamClock crashed, and I couldn't figure out what to do. So I wrote him, and he wrote me back right away, just before midnight. It was surprising. And we carried on throughout the day today. So he's a real person, and I got somewhat acquainted with him over email. And if you're going to get involved with HamClock and you have any questions or difficulty, he's a real person, and he's a good guy to help out. So kudos to Mr. Elwood Downey. So anyway, Elwood, I took this excerpt from his article that he wrote. Let's see. Yeah, this article that he wrote, I'm giving you a link to this article here. So in case you're curious, you go to Clear Sky Institute and look at his HamClock article from 2017. Well, he wrote in his article that he thought it would be useful to build a desk clock that would show accurate time, geography, time zone, solar activity, sunrise and sunset times, Maidenhead and locators, beam heading, and Northern California DX Foundation beacons, news headlines, and other timely information in one small device. So I didn't know that that was his idea, but that was kind of the idea that I had when I first got introduced to the HamClock. So I'm sorry though. So I'm kind of plagiarizing this from Carol as well. I think she may have posted this on Discord or somewhere a few weeks back, but a HamClock is like a kiosk-style freeware application that runs on lots of different platforms. It can run on a Raspberry Pi or any kind of Linux system, or possibly a Ada, Fruit, I guess, Windows, Mac OS, and other things. So, but it provides, real-time space weather, radio propagation models, operating events, and other information particularly useful to the radio amateur. I'm going to cover some of these, but not all of these. There's a lot that to be covered with a HamClock. But if you're curious about something, I can probably speak to it to some extent. So I'm going to jump right into, what is a HamClock? Well, I really wanted to be able to do a live demo of the HamClock, but I just did not have the IT resources on hand in the time frame that I had to work on this. So I took photographs of my HamClock screen, and I was able to get them into this presentation to discuss them. So here's the main screen of the HamClock. And by the way, the HamClock is configurable, right? Which means each of these areas are kind of referred to by the author as panels. So this might be like a panel 1, panel 2. These squares are like panel 3, panel 4, panel 5, and 6, and so on. And then this is your map area. And over here, I'm not sure what you would call this area here, but this area here in the upper left-hand corner is kind of your clock. And as silly as it seems, it is the one thing that drew me into the HamClock first. I was like, I didn't know anything about any of this other stuff, but I just wanted a clock. And so I got a really nice clock out of it. I'm going to be explaining some of these panels as we go forward. I'm going to take a pause and ask if anybody has any questions.
Hey, Wilson, it's James. Good evening.
Hey, James. Good evening. Hey, 6JG, N6EMF.
That sounds familiar. You know what? You're 5'9".
All right.
Yeah.
QSL.
Yeah. Are you going to talk about how you put it together or where you get it? Is that coming up?
You know what? I was pretty confused about what I would present, and I had lots of different ideas about what I present. This presentation is mostly about an overview. And towards the end, I'm going to talk about my motivations for building the clock, and I'll have a list of parts and a little bit of background about what I did.
That's what I was asking. Does it come as a kit, or do you have to buy all the pieces?
And you know what? There's probably 100 answers to that question, because I found out that there's a lot of options available out there. If you Googled HamClock, you'd find a lot of different ways you could implement this clock.
All right, that's cool. All right.
Yeah. And I'm only going to cover one of them. But I'm sure that like N6HA, I think Bill might be on here. He might be aware of some other ones. But anyway, so I'm going to jump to the next screen, and then I'm going to start talking about what these panels can do. What do these panels tell you, right? Because when I first started looking at this clock, I was overwhelmed. I was like, what is all of this stuff? And why are these things jumping around? And what does all this mean? It's a lot of information packed into but it's very well organized, very well executed when you start to understand how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this upper left-hand corner first, where you see my call sign in 6EMF. Well, what that is called, that's called the clock panel, okay? We call that the clock panel, and that term is right out of the instruction manual, I think, or they call it the user guide. So the main clock panel is fixed in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and it displays your call sign at the top. You configure that when you start it up the first time, and then the next row on the clock tells you how long the clock has been running. So this clock at the time of this photograph is running 13 minutes and 50 seconds. It tells you the Wi-Fi signal strength if at minus 50 dBm. And then it tells you the software version of the application that you're running for the HamClock. So I'm running version 3.06. And this shows this time right here is a 24-hour time base in universal coordinated time, or GMT, or Greenwich Mean Time, Zulu time, whatever you call it. But this is universal time here, which is the thing. This is the thing that I wanted. And that gives you the date, obviously. Now, this lock symbol here is very interesting. The lock symbol has multi-functions, right? If you click on the lock symbol, it will lock the screen so you can't disturb your settings. But the other thing that it will do is if you hold down the lock signal, like if you click on it and hold, it opens up a panel that I didn't take a photograph of, but what it does is it enables you to shut down the clock application or post a log for troubleshooting purposes. And the log is automatically transmitted back to the author of the software program. It goes directly to Elwood Downey's server, the guy who wrote the program, and I actually worked with him on that. So that lock symbol is a pretty good thing to get to know. Any questions? All right, next up. So what you'll see me doing is every time I switch to a new panel, I'm going to go back to the main screen and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to go for next. So I'm going to go for this DE panel. What does DE mean? For HF operations, DE is a term that would mean like where you're at, where you're operating from. So in Spanish, DE is like de, is like from. That's how I think about it. But for HF, for ham radio, it means where you're at or where you're located. So your current location is DE. And you could see here, I'm going to zoom in on DE. I thought I was going to zoom in on DE. Bear with me here. I think I got something out of order. But the DE panel shows the HamClock's idea of your location and your local time, right? And you program your location in there by your grid square, which in my case, where I live here, my QTH is in Rancho Cordova, and grid square here is CM98, and that's where I live. And a lot of people who live around me are at CM98 as well. But the local time at the time I took this photograph was 7:45, April 2nd. And I'm not sure. Oh, that was this morning, just before I left for work. But 7:45 a.m. April 2nd was the time I took this photograph here in Rancho Cordova. And then here's my GPS coordinates, which are fed from CM98. But HamClock uses this information for many different purposes, from lunar angles to spot bearings. And in this default configuration, it shows, again, the local time, the date, the latitude and longitude, grid square, and sunrise and sunset events. So the S here tells you what time. I'm not sure what this is saying right now, and I apologize. Yeah, okay. So sunset, it says 11:43, but I'm confused
11
by.
hours.
Oh, 11 hours. Okay. Thank you for that, Carol, because there's different display formats and you can change what it reads. You can have it read the actual time or the duration and that kind of stuff. But S and R is sunset and sunrise, I believe. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. And so the other thing is the HamClock does not attempt to correct for daylight savings time. So you do need to make an adjustment. And I'm not going to go into it, but the user's guide or the user guide tells you how to make adjustments to this panel. And it's usually around clicking up and down around the numbers to adjust the numbers. And to be fair to the author, I excerpted this text from his article. So I made a link to that if you want to see it. Let's give him credit for that. So next slide is kind of zooming back out again. And my next slide, I think, is going to be DX. I'm going to talk about DX. So DX means distance, or the remote location for operation, or the place or the person you're trying to talk to elsewhere. And so what I need to do is go back and explain something on this map here. This section in the middle is called the map, and you can change the context of this map. This map context right now is called terrain. And what I've turned it on so it shows city lights at night. And so what this is right here, where I'm encircling, this is the actual location of the sun above the Earth's surface, right? I mean, so this is the location of the sun, and the sun is illuminating that spot of the Earth. And this right here, as many of us HF folks know, this represents the gray line, and there's a technical term for it. I think it's called terminus line or something like that. But it's the where the shadow of the sunlight meets the sunlight. And theoretically, it's sort of touted to carry HF signals better, especially on lower frequencies than other paths. So if you're shooting an HF signal from here, it might inject into the ionosphere and ride this, presumably ride this line to its exit or to its destination. That's my understanding. I really don't understand space weather that well, but if anybody has any questions, I'm sure there's folks here that can fill in the gaps. Any comments or questions so far? Okay, so
if I could help a little bit,
yeah.
Wilson. If you go on this gray line that you pointed out, let me just tell you, it's excellent for hitting South America on HF. Let's say on 10 or 15 meters. All of a sudden, you'll hear Chile, you'll hear Argentina, or Paraguay or something like that, because it just travels naturally north and south, following that twilight zone, for lack of a better word.
Thank you, Arthur. And I could appreciate what you're saying, because if the line was lined up with where my DE is, which is this green dot, is approximately where we are right now. The gray line in the morning would be like along this area here where I'm waving my mouse, and it would line up with sort of South America, right? So that's what you're explaining. It's taken me longer than I expected to go through this slide, but I wanted to establish on this slide that the DE panel tells the location of where you're at, and that's that dot here. The DX panel is your remote location, or where your remote operator is situated. And that's where, I don't have it shown here, but that's what this salmon or this orange colored dot is here. Okay. And I'm going to get, oh, go ahead.
Correction. That orange spot is called the antipode. That's the opposite side of the world from exactly where you are. The DX spot is the one that's in green, and you have set up the DX spot very close to your physical spot in here in Sacramento. So if you look at the coordinates on both DE and DX, they're almost the same. They're both CM98. That's the reason why they're overlying each other.
Thank you. I appreciate the correction, Carol. I'm recognizing that, and I know what I did now. Let me show you one that, oh no, I goofed this one up. I don't have, oh, there's one. There's a line, a propagation line that I was trying to refer to. So the orange dot is DE, and the green dot here is DX. And there's a line that shows the short path propagation line between the two. And then the other line, the other lighter colored line, is the long path. And I'll try to go into that briefly. My apologies for getting some things out of order here. But thank you for that clarification, Carol. So the DX panel is very similar to the DE panel. It just shows where the DX location is located, the time in that location, which is different time zone, obviously, usually if you're in a different part of the world. And it gives the coordinates, the grid square information, the sunrise and sunset. It also shows this LP indication indicates long path, okay? And that's 1,950 miles, which is the long path between DE and DX at an azimuth of 221 degrees from north. And you can tell the program whether you want magnetic north or true north. And I don't remember which one this is, but by default, whatever mine is, it's 221 degrees to wherever my DX is right now. So I don't need to read this slide, but if you don't have any questions, that explains DX. So I'm going to zoom back out to the main screen. I need to figure out where I'm going next. Now, next, I'm going to talk about the the Voice of America prediction program for propagation. And so here's a panel up here that you can configure this, right? You can right click up in each panel and change the configuration of the panel. What I was able to do was right click here and select this VOACAP propagation predicting tool to have it sit right here in this panel. So that's what I wanted for this presentation. And so what it's showing, this is showing the propagation prediction between DE and DX, which are these two locations here off to the left, these two panels to the left. So unfortunately, I don't know why, but I didn't capture the propagation line here. My apologies. But the point here is, let me see if I can remember this. But I'm going to go down here. This is the Voice of America Coverage Analysis Program. That's what VOACAP stands for. This pane shows a graph of path percentage reliability predictions from DE to DX spanning 24 hours for each HF ham band. So if you look at this chart here, on the y-axis, you have the bands, 10-meter band, 12 through 80. That's on the DE, right? And then on the x-axis, you have the number of hours looking forward. I believe this is the 0th hour, and then 8 hours, 12, 16, 20, 24 hours. I suppose that's 28 hours, and so on. And then what's interesting is these colorful things, they mean something, right? The graph squares that are black indicate that there's a less than 10% chance of propagation between your two locations. Black means you're probably not going to have a path. But let me tell you, the context of that is there's these settings on the bottom that you can modify. You can adjust these parameters. This parameter indicates that you're able to transmit 100 watts. This parameter indicates your mode, your operating mode. In this case, for the model, it's defaulted CW, and I didn't change it. So for Morse code or CW. I can't remember what TOA is. Does anyone know?
Takeoff angle. Yeah,
Okay.
takeoff angle.
So the takeoff angle is going to be related to, you know, your antenna arrangement, basically, your antenna system. And your takeoff angle, if it's greater than 3, you know, that's 3 degrees, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay, so that's anything greater than the horizon, basically. And then SP, what they're talking about when they say SP is a short path. That means the shortest path between two locations on Earth that's plotted on that map that we talked about before. S, Carol? S?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can't remember what S means, but I wanted to give some context of how this gets established. So if you see red, you're dead. Red is less than 30% probability, or less than, I don't know how they measure this, but it's a less than 30% reliability for propagation between point A and point T, between DE and DX at 100 watts, CW with this takeoff angle on that particular band. So let's pick one. If you were right now trying to communicate between DE and DX on 15 meters, you wouldn't be able to because it shows black. But in 15 or 16 hours from now, you might, or say 16 hours from now, you'd have very little chance of reliability because it's red. But the hour before that is yellow, and yellow indicates that there's a 66% chance, or rather 66% reliability. That means something different, and I apologize. Reliability means something entirely different. But if it's green, you're good to go. It's above 66% reliability for path propagation. So what you're looking for is greens and yellows for propagation. If you wanted to get on there at the time of this report, you would be jumping on 40 meters 20 hours from now to get the best propagation. Any questions? Questions,
Yeah,
comments?
yeah, I believe that scale on the bottom is actually the time in UTC hours. Or you can actually you can customize that for your local time or for UTC as well.
Thank you for that, Carol. I was confused about that too, because in my previous installation it was for hours and I couldn't tell what was going on, but that's really helpful. So along the x-axis, what Carol was saying is that's actual probably UTC time. Very good, very good. Next up, I'm going back to the main screen, and I might be wanting to show something here. There's a lot to discuss, but I'm going to now go into space weather real briefly. Maybe I didn't have that one on display, but I pulled up space weather as a topic of interest. And I'm sorry that my cursor from my Raspberry Pi was pointed over the S, but that's an S. The R, S, and G are space weather parameters from NOAA. And they're weather scales. The left column is for the current conditions. The zeros aligned here for current conditions, like right now. R means a radio blackout. So if it's 0, that means there's 0 impact to the public for a radio blackout possibility. S is a solar radiation storm. 0 means there was no solar radiation storm impact to us. And G is geomagnetic storm. In this 0th hour, or this current time, there was no impacts. And the second column, it indicates the for the next days, right? So I guess this column would be, the next column would be tomorrow, the following would be the next day, and the following day, and then you start to see some impacts showing up with a geomagnetic storm showing a 1. I just thought I would share that to just show kind of the complexity of the HamClock, that the various things. I'm not even scratching the surface, but there's just so many different things that you could do with the HamClock. And I didn't zoom in on this panel here on the main screen, but I happen to have a POTA screen up, and this is a Parks on the Air spots. So here, each color represents a different band. So you see these green ones here are 18 megahertz, right? And there's 2 operators like IW2MJW. This operator was operating on 18 megahertz, and his POTA spot ID was IT0806, and he was on 2 minutes ago. That's what that 2M means. We go down to the bottom, this person down here was on 1 minute ago. That's their ID and their call sign, and then their frequency they were operating on. I actually tested this and it worked, so I was amused by that. I didn't get a chance to operate, but I was up late last night playing with the clock, getting ready for the presentation, and I was able to validate for my own education that it works.
Wilson, can I ask a question at this point?
Yeah.
How many of these screens are available?
Well, let me tell you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say there's probably 15 of them, or 20. but that's just
that's
just
quite an option.
and that's just in the panels, but each one is configurable, right? So there's just, it's mind-boggling. You really have to. I actually broke his server last night. That was the reason why I had to contact. I busted his server. I was proud. I was not proud of it when I did it, but I had to work through something with him to get, because I was experimenting and literally broke his server. So anyway, that's what learning is about, though. You make mistakes, but he might. Maybe if you're interested, I'll talk about that later. So I built the HamClock, and here's why. Let me tell you why I built the HamClock. So this is a picture of my shack right around Thanksgiving, and at the time, in the upper left-hand corner of my shack, I had a little clock that I bought from Walmart for my desk at work. And when we were sent home on telework during the pandemic, I brought this clock home so I could watch the clock from home instead of at my desk at work. And so I didn't really need it at home. So what I did was I printed out a UTC label and labeled it UTC Zulu. And I made myself a UTC clock, a homebrew universal time clock here. And it worked, but I was never really satisfied with it. But it was, the point was I had a clock, and I kept hearing about this HamClock. And so this was kind of one of my starting points, is why I ended up wanting to build this clock. And then I ended up selling this at the White Elephant sale. Someone wanted it.
Well,
so
I hate to tell you this, but your desk is very neat and tidy. You know, a clean desk is a sure sign of a sick mind.
Yeah, and yeah, so this is a snapshot for entertaining and for company. But if you saw my desk right now, you'll see my coffee cup from this morning. There's dust. There's stapler where it doesn't belong. There's something laying sideways. So this is just for the photo op. But I just want you to know that I thought my little homebrew UTC clock was cute, and I really got a kick out of making it and sharing it on. I did put it up for the White Elephant sale and also the Slow Scan TV one night. And so my reasons for building the HamClock was initially inspired by other Ham Club or club members that have built or encouraged others to build the clock, including Carol, KP4MD, and David, KE7EL. David is a friend and a retired coworker. So David Kitts was actually the first one that kind of put me up on the HamClock just before he retired in about 2017 or 18. And I actually built it and couldn't figure out what to do with it, and I wasn't operating, so I just put it in a box and forgot about it. And then Carol came up, and I said, oh yeah, I have one of those. Let me go ahead and build it to get it going. My second reason for building it was the goal of having a universal coordinated time clock and local time readily and reliably shown on a fixed display. I really wanted that. So that's what I wanted. And number three is, I strongly believe in accurate timekeeping for events such as logging contacts and starting, running, and transitioning between nets. And as you know, some of you know, I'm an engineer and I work in the electric utility, and we analyze events, and we analyze them down to the millisecond. And times have to be coordinated across the interconnected system, across multiple states and time zones. So it's important, to me as a person, to keep accurate time and have something that gives the right time. And it just really, this clock really speaks to me for those reasons. And so the fourth reason that I wanted this clock was I wanted room to grow. I'm kind of a gadget person. I like novelty and complexity. I like to get, figure things out. So this clock was definitely that. And I remember meeting with Carol for coffee one afternoon, and I said, hey, what are all these panels for? And she laughed at me and showed me a couple, and I was glazed over. But I'm in a better spot now, Carol. So this gives me some room to explore propagation statistics and space weather and kind of up my game around HF operating. So thank you, Carol, and everybody else that has contributed to the HamClock thing. So here's my completed HamClock. Here's a photograph of it sitting on top of my shack shelf that I in the place of my homebrew Walmart clock. And that case there was 3D printed by Hank K6HUH. He's been printing HamClock enclosures for club members for free. So go over and check in with Hank and offer him some support or materials or whatever else he needs, or he doesn't ever ask for anything, but he's been graciously doing this. So here's some couple of different perspectives of my HamClock. I didn't really get detailed view, but here's a side view of the clock, and on each side, on the left, you see my little handheld, and between the handheld radio, the HT, and the back of the clock, you'll see a knife switch. It's kind of blurry, but the knife switch is how I cut power to my hand clock. I didn't discuss this very much, but I have a 12-volt DC barrier strip back there that I kind of feed accessories in on my shelf, and then from that, I feed a buck converter that Carol gave me. It drops the voltage from 12 volts off your power supply down to 5 volts. And it actually has USB ports on it that I use to power my HamClock and other 5-volt accessories. Sometimes I even charge my phone there. And I apologize for not having a better picture of that. But so anyway, before I continue, let me take a pause and ask if you have any questions or you have any comments so far. I'll have a couple more slides. All right.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Like it.
All right. So you can build a HamClock too. All you need, well, you don't even need an enclosure actually. But again, my enclosure was 3D printed thanks to Hank Thompson, K6HUH, who has done excellent 3D printing work supporting club members' HamClock builds. Number two, you don't have to have an enclosure. You can do this without an enclosure. You can run this headless without a display and project over like a virtual network connection or X11 or something like that. But you do need some type of computer to run the application, and I'm using a Raspberry Pi 4 starter kit that I bought from Amazon. That I bought several years ago. I don't even remember how much I paid for it. The kit was about $80. I won't go into all the details, but it came with an AC/DC power supply. It came with an HDMI cable. It came with a 4 gigabyte card. It came with a book on how to do Raspberry Pi and a breadboard and some wires and some little knickknacks like LEDs and stuff like that. That was about $80 or $90. If you bought just the Raspberry Pi by itself, it might only be $30, but I had all this other stuff in the kit. That same kit has gone up substantially in price. I don't know why, but maybe some other Raspberry Pis like the newer generation have come down in price. If you do this project and you're using a Raspberry Pi, I highly recommend you upgrade to a more modern Pi that at least has Wi-Fi on it, because it makes the build process so much easier to have Wi-Fi. You don't want to have to establish a wired Ethernet connection unless you have those ports handy. And it's really difficult to set up Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi dongle on a Raspberry Pi if you don't know what you're doing, like me. So number three, so when you get a Raspberry Pi, it usually doesn't have an operating system on it, or if it does, it's in pretty dim awareness. It doesn't have any ham stuff on there. But Kilo Mike 4 Alpha Charlie Kilo is a guy that built a build a Pi script. He calls it build a Pi. So you'll hear people talking about this, and you can go on YouTube or Google anywhere and say build a Pi, and you'll learn all kinds of stuff about this. But he built a package that can run on a Raspberry Pi that includes the HamClock and a dozen or more other ham related applications that are just mind-blowing interesting. So it lets you choose from among 40 other ham apps, and the script will automatically install them. So that's the way to do it. I'll stop. Any questions? Comments? That build a Pi script is free, and there's tons of videos on how to do it.
Okay, Wilson, this is Neil. What about the utilization of a Mac or a Windows a laptop?
Okay, So a couple of things you have to do. I learned about this. Number one, on Windows, you can't run this on Windows in the Windows operating system. It has to run on Linux. But, and I haven't done it yet, but there is a way in Windows 11 to emulate Linux. I haven't done it, but I just read about it. There's an emulation program where you can emulate Linux, or you can run it in a virtual machine or something like that and have it where you just click on it in Windows and it boots like it's a Linux operating system, and it'll run this Raspberry Pi OS, or it'll run, or rather it'll run the not the Raspberry Pi, but it'll run the HamClock if that's what you want. And a similar thing is true with Macs, but with Macs it's a little bit more complicated. On a Mac, you have to install Xcode, which is a development environment for writing code on a Mac. Like if you're going to write code to target an iOS, like an iPhone or an iPad or another Mac OS type system, or something like an Apple Watch, you have to install Xcode and then do some work in that domain. And I don't recommend it unless you're a software programmer. I've done it before, and it's probably the reason why I'm discouraging it is because it's very resource intensive. It's very resource intensive. It takes a large footprint on your hard drive. It takes a lot of RAM, and it just hogs up a lot of resources. So if you can avoid it on a Mac, I would. But the other way to do this is to do something called VNC, and I think it means virtual network connection. You basically download a server and a client that enables you to remotely connect to a Raspberry Pi without having to have a display. And you can do that from any computer that can run a virtual network connection. So you can run it from an iPad, probably an iPhone, a Mac OS, whatever. But I think the most sensible approach is to have a Raspberry Pi for most people. And I think that there's an implementation of HamClock that's being sold real cheap right now for $40 or $50. I've heard people talking about it, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's HamClock. It's sold by Veritium Research, and I did put the link to that in the chat if anybody wants to look at that.
Okay. That helped, Neil? Thank you,
Oh, yeah,
Carol.
absolutely. Thank you. Clarify a lot. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Number 4 is in my what I did was I bought this 7-inch screen. It's an LCD touch screen with a pretty good resolution. Long story short, it's an HDMI interface, and it was Carol that I think directed me to most of these things. Like Carol directed me to this screen, and there's also some cable provisions you need to pay very careful attention to if you're going to build what I built and what Carol built, because you got to come out of the case at certain angles with the cables to make it look neat and not look like a mess or an octopus. So you need these 90-degree right angle cables to get your HDMI going and your USB cables. So it's kind of difficult or complicated, but you do need these angles to make it look nice. And if you want to talk more about it, hit me up. I'm at n6emf@arrl.net. If you have a question about my build, or if you need support or help, or have suggestions about putting together a cadre around building HamClocks as a project, I think that would be cool. So you can build a HamClock too. I think this is a repeat, and I don't need to repeat this again, or maybe I didn't, but the enclosure is by Hank, and I'm gonna quote Carol. She said this on Discord, on N6NA's Discord server, just right after Thanksgiving. She said, thanks to Hank, K6HUH, who offers 3D printing to our club members, here's a 7-inch touchscreen and a $30 Raspberry Pi single board computer mounted in a 3D printed case that costs 80 cents in material. You can see it running on the free HamClock software. So I didn't have her picture, but you get the idea. So yeah, thanks for that note, Carol. I plagiarized you, but I gave you credit. So I met my goals here. I participated in a really fun project to build my HamClock and share it with you. And I established a reliable and accurate display of local and UTC time for my shack. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I learned a a ton from your questions and your comments and from preparing this presentation. I don't, and so again, I'm Wilson in 6EMF, and you can reach me at that email there. There's a picture of my HamClock. Thank you.
Wilson, thank you. That was a great presentation. Now I'm getting inspired to do that myself.
Thank you.
What I need is more inspiration, more hobbies, more projects. But I'm retired and retarded, so fits together.
I'd
Any,
like to share something too, if I can. I'm sure some
Sure.
other people may have questions. But I'm running it on my, I could show you right now. There's my HamClock, and you can see it running right there. It's on a Raspberry Pi, and HamClock has a built-in web server. So if you have it running on your local network, just because this is just working through Wi-Fi on my local network, you can get any computer. You can have a Mac or a PC, Windows PC that's on your network, and you could bring up the HamClock screen. And it's pretty awesome. Like I can do that right now. I'm going to show you what I'm watching on a window. There, I'm sharing it right now.
Is that from its web server or is that a VNC connection?
This is from the web server, and
I didn't realize that.
And that is 192.168.0.110 and then :8081/live.html. And that's you're seeing the live display of my HamClock right now. That's the actual time right now, UTC local time. It's really awesome. So there's a lot you could right now. I'm also showing these are spots. You can have this set up to show the PSK reporter spots for FT8, for whisper spots. You can program it to show satellite, when you can contact satellites or the ISS. It's really awesome. There's just so much stuff included in this program.
So, Carol, since even though you're going to their site, you can still do some customization for your own display.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I think, can I clarify that? I think that's inside of the HamClock. This is a web server in that clock though, right?
Yes, yes.
This is not HamClock's website. This is Carol's HamClock's web server.
Yeah. So you have to have the HamClock running on a computer in your house, and you can hook into it, and just see your HamClock on any other computer.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. If I would have known that, I would have been able to do more with the presentation, but that's great to know.
I'm a little confused from what I heard from Wilson, and I may be very confused. It has to be running on a Linux environment or a Raspberry Pi, not on a Windows environment. Now, from what I hear from Carol, it will be running on the Windows environment. Am I correct?
No. I'm using a browser in my Microsoft Windows, and the browser is just it's just duplicating what's showing on my Raspberry Pi.
Oh, so you have to have your original, and then once you have it, now you can use the internet to connect the computers.
Yes.
Got you. Thank you.
it's very inspiring and very interesting.
Carol, question for you. This is Kishore. So you can get a Raspberry HamClock running on a Raspberry Pi without a monitor, without a touchscreen like Wilson had, and just open a browser and then go over to the IP address of that. So you really don't need so if you don't have space, for example, in your ham shack, then you can just use your existing computer monitor, and because it's connected to the same Wi-Fi network, you can go to your HamClock screen.
Exactly. So you could run a headless, that's what you say. You don't have a monitor connected on the Raspberry Pi itself. It's just running the software, and you can get on any browser in your house to go and watch it. Sure. On another computer.
Thanks.
And for somebody like me that has no idea about Raspberry Pis, never dealt with one, never seen one, is there a source that we can go and purchase something like this that is running the software to use in the shack?
Yeah, you could easily buy a Raspberry Pi, and you can. All you need to do is get the software onto a little micro SD card, and if you need any of us to help you with that, we'd be glad to do that. Just plug it in, you'll be able to run it.
Okay, thank
Sure.
you very much. We'll follow up on that. Thank you, Carol. And thank you, Wilson. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, very interesting, and I'm inspired. Next month, in the month of May, the meeting topic is going to be end-fed half-wave antennas. I've spent some time playing with this, and at this point, I've got 24 slides. There's a lot to this antenna that I think everyone will find quite interesting. And I think we'll have some fun with it.
Are you going to talk about counterpoise, Phil?
Oh, baby.
We're not talking about you, James.
You know, actually, I've got some references about counterpoise that I think you'll find quite fascinating. You know, there's a lot of ways of looking at things. And one of my concerns with amateur radio is that it doesn't matter what topic you come up with. If you go on the internet, you'll find 768 different opinions about them, all presented as fact. And what's bad about that, in my opinion, is there's a lot of poor souls that get led down the path and confused and upset and frustrated for no real reason. So what I'm attempting to present is really simple, basic, absolute fact that make it easy for people to understand what's going on and help them with any other decisions they have relative to this whole concept of antennas. So in any event, that's next month. The HamClock thing was fascinating. There is no drawing this evening. And unless there's additional questions, by the way, we got all the way up to 33 participants tonight. That's pretty good. Any questions?
No, but before you end, I think I was kind of expecting you to have some presentation today, since it is April, about your new wireless antenna.
Oh, you know, I actually do have something in that regard. Today's actually the 2nd, you know.
Yeah, that's okay.
Another Ham Club has an annual event called the Bogus Story Contest for the month of April. And I actually wrote a little bogus story revolving around the end-fed half-wave antenna, which will be presented at the Samuel F. Morris Club meeting next week. How's that sound? No, it's this week.
No, this week, yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, this week. So we'll get into that. Anything else? That being the case, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to go home. Thank you one and all.
Good night. Good job.
73.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good
all.
night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night, all. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Bye.